Yeah, we're talking about this again. What's up, nerds? It's your boy, the OGGM, coming to you live at 9:06 in the morning here at Site B on this, the 26th day of September 2023. It's about 71 degrees and getting sunny here. And the reviews for the D&D Maps alpha test is starting to come in. Apparently, there are individuals out there who actually bothered to either have a D&D Beyond account still to go check this out, or were invited to be part of the alpha test. Now, just to show you where we are in the timeline from 2020 till today, just a reminder that in 2020, of course, the then CEO of Hasbro came forward and laid out very clearly their plans for the progression and evolution of Wizards of the Coast, which so far they have been following to the letter. And yet there are still people out there who seem to want to hold on to this small precipice of disbelief that Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro is going to do exactly what they said they were going to do every year since 2020, multiple times this year. So it should come as no surprise to anyone who's been paying attention that they made a VTT and that it was going to go live. Now, we saw a sneak preview of the VTT earlier this year, the alpha test at the big D&D hullabaloo weekend thing. We remember that nightmare, right? Turns out it was not, in fact, a VTT alpha test at all. It was a pre-programmed point and click that they made to show you what it could tentatively look like. Well, now the VTT, or whatever it is currently residing as an alpha test on D&D Beyond. You now have the privilege to pay Wizards of the Coast $6 a month to do their job for them. You can pay now to alpha test the maps. It's been up for about a week, and we have had some reactions to it. I think it's wonderful. It's genius if this works. And a couple people have told me that, yeah, they did this with Baldur's Gate too. You got to pay $60 for the privilege of play testing and alpha testing Baldur's Gate 3 for them. And I was like, yeah, but there's a huge difference between the people who paid $60 for the Baldur's Gate alpha test and this, the $5 to do Wizards of the Coast for them. The people who did the alpha test of Baldur's Gate actually got something out of this. Not only did they get early access to Baldur's Gate, and they got a bunch of free stuff, both in-game and afterwards, as a thank you for paying the makers of Baldur's Gate 3 for the privilege of alpha testing for them. Wizards of the Coast isn't giving you anything. Your name's not even going to be in this. You're just paying them for the privilege to alpha test their product so they don't have to. At which point they're going to give you surveys. They will go over the surveys, and if the surveys are like anything for the D&D 2024 surveys, they will probably ignore anything that doesn't go against what they want it to look like. So the reviews are coming in. Now, the reviews have not been good. Nope. No. Oh, no. So I don't know how people are getting their hands on this ahead of time, but Ted from Nerdiversion, who, as we know, is one of the biggest Wizards of the Coast simps that we're aware of, did a informant thing about it. He found out about it, and he spoke about it for about 15 minutes. And when for him, did not give that great of a review. Basically, his review was, it's pretty, it exists. Our girl over at Dungeon and Discourse made a video about it, and she's talked about it for 13 minutes, telling us how bad it was. And I really respect her because she really has the quirky sense of humor, but also really gives you a lot of good in-depth information. So she's cool. Then we've got Roll for Combat, who did an almost 2 hours talk about it, including having some of the people who actually were playtesting it. And it came out as being reviewed as being really, really bad. And then we got Professor Dungeon Master talking about it. And he's reacting to the reviews, saying that the best from his research, and, Professor Dungeon Master, if he goes into something, he's going to go into it, says the best he could find was a review on RPG Pot, where the review said, it exists and it's pretty. So the best we could find for people who smarter than me who actually research this is the VTT is up. It's on D&D Beyond. You can pay D&D Beyond the $6 a month for the privilege of doing their job for them for alpha testing. And what we've seen so far is it's pretty. Doesn't really look any different than it did earlier this year. Bare bones. There's an example scenario, but it's the exact same example scenario we already saw, which means it's more of the point and click adventure with only certain responses. It's not a full-on VTT yet, but they're going to grow as it is alpha tested over the years. I don't know how long they're planning alpha test this. So I guess right now the thinking is not to make it two separate programs, but to have it run on D&D Beyond instead of being a separate VTT server. Probably not the best idea, but whatever. So generally, this has been out for a week, and the reviews from pretty much everybody has been less than favorable. Strangely enough, most of the reviews are coming from people who are on the 5e fence, not on the OSR fence. The OSR people aren't going to spend $60 to play test this. And the response to this reviews from several of the few remaining people who refuse to see the light of what is going on, they are upset that those of us in the OGL, the OSR, those of us who fought in January are upset that it's bad. They seem to think like, well, why are you upset it's bad? Didn't you want it to be bad? And didn't you want D&D Beyond to fail? Didn't you want the OGL to fail? Didn't you want all the things in January that happened to result in something bad? You guys all wanted D&D to fail. You want the VTT to fail. You want everything that's Wizards of the Coast has done since January to be bad, right? And the answer is no. That's exactly wrong. Nobody wanted this to fail. We're upset because it is awful, okay? Because what you people like J. Scott Garraby and these other idiots out there and Jay Willis and these other guys don't understand is we don't want D&D to fail. We want it to succeed. Wizards of the Coast made a promise and failed to live up to that promise. And we, those of us who've been playing this game for 40 years, those of us who fought the OGL wars in January, weren't fighting it because we wanted D&D to fail and we wanted Wizards of the Coast to fail. We're not upset because it sucks, because we wanted it to suck. We're upset because it sucks and we didn't want it to suck. We want Wizards of the Coast to treat D&D and the fan base with respect. We didn't fight the OGL wars for us. We got nothing out of the ORC. Everything that's being done is mostly 5e related, right? Tales from the Valiant, 5e. Level Up, 5e. 5e. Matt Colville's game, 5e. All the other stuff that's coming out that is 5e and 5e adjacent. The OGL stuff that's coming out is either saying, yeah, I'm still OGL 1.1, or I'm using the orc, or I don't care. I'm still going to make shit. Let them come after me. You don't see, DCC is still making stuff. Green Ronin, Frog God Games, Venger, all the other people who were OSR, OGL, we're still making stuff for the OGL, for other games, for Castles and Crusades is still out there. We didn't fight for us. We fought because we didn't want Wizards of the Coast to screw you guys over. We wanted Wizards of the Coast to respect and embrace what Dungeons and Dragons was, what Dungeons and Dragons is, what Dungeons and Dragons should be. So in 2020, when they announced we're going all digital, well, some of you were like saying, oh, that would never happen. And other people were saying, that's stupid. Why would you do us? Those of us who actually understand the industry were like, yeah, that totally makes sense. I can see why they're going digital. Not only is it from a financial point of view, makes more sense. From simply an economic point of view, it makes more sense. Because I don't know if you know this, you fucking marks, but trees are at a minimum. And it costs way too much money to continue to make physical product as opposed to digital product, which costs basically nothing. So they announce the VTT. And of course, the OGL, people like me are like, oh, groan. Not because we wanted it to fail, you goddamn fucking marks, because we wanted it to succeed. And if you're curious about why there's so many negative reactions to the VTT that have come out from people who supposedly are in the OGL, and you're saying, Well, why is the Dungeon and Discourse upset? Why is the OGGM upset? Didn't you want it to fail? You should be happy it's failing. No, because Wizards of the Coast made promises that they still fail to keep. No, because we want the people who are actually investing in this stupid thing to actually be able to enjoy it and not continue to be treated like shit. Wizards of the Coast hates you, okay? You don't matter to Wizards of the Coast, young lady, Veruca. All that matters is your money. Wizards of the Coast is not building product for 5e fans. You know who was most upset about the VTT? 5e fans. You know who was most upset about the announcements to the changes to the 2024 D&D? Wasn't the OGL. People like me, I wasn't upset. I knew exactly what Wizards of the Coast was going to do when they said we're not getting the responses to the surveys that we want, so we're going to re-release the product and re-release the surveys until we get the response. I was like, yeah, because you're gearing your surveys towards an audience that doesn't exist. Same thing now. They're gearing the VTT for an audience that doesn't exist. They're gearing Dungeons & Dragons 2024 for an audience that doesn't exist. When the actual 5e players, the 5,000, 5 million Snyder's Math 5e players, spent the year going through the playtests, all 7 of them, and responded, Wizards of the Coast was, well, we're going backwards. And you know who was the most vocal about the announcement? 5e fans. If you watch the actual intercourse between Chris and the other guy and Jeremy and the other guy, and you look at the Discord comments in the chat, it's not DM James, it's not DM Bloodworth, it's not Professor DM, it's not me, it's not Max Liao, it's 5e players telling them to go fuck off. And how, what a fucking joke. Now it sounds like a 20-page errata. I'm not going to pay $150 for a 20-page errata. Now remember the same thing. VTT comes out. Look at all the people who are upset about it. OGL people like me? Yeah. But the most people who are upset about it are people like Dungeon and, Nerd Immersion and Roll for Combat. People who actually play 5e, actively support 5e. They're the ones who are disappointed. And as for why people like me are disappointed, why is Professor Dungeon Master disappointed? Why is the OGL people who fought in January so you could have Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition continue to exist? We're upset because Wizards of the Coast fails to keep up to the promises. We're upset because Wizards of the Coast isn't treating Dungeons & Dragons the way we wanted to treat it. We don't want this to fail. We want it to succeed. We want Wizards of the Coast to be successful and to carry D&D forward and to create a Dungeons & Dragons that embraces the actual community. Not only the old school OGL, OSR community like myself, but the new school players, We want the new school players to be able to say, hi, I want to play 5th edition, and I don't want Wizards of the Coast to punish me for it. And we want the new school players to go, hey, I'm really curious in these older games. Can you teach me about them without being, fed this line that if you play the old games, you're a racist. You're a horrible person. The old school is racist. The old school is hateful and deceitful. The old school is always picking on me. January was never about the OGL. January was about what Wizards of the Coast was trying to pull off and what Wizards of the Coast was doing to the fan base and how sneaky and deceptive and scummy they were. If Wizards of the Coast had succeeded in January, all the third-party 5e product would cease to exist. Okay? That was their goal. Anything that fell under the OGL, anything that they didn't control that used D20 mechanics would have failed, and they would have gone after them, and they would have been able to just either seek out ways to destroy them or gobble them up with their money. That was the whole thing. So if you're using a product from any company that isn't Wizards of the Coast that is 5e approved, including Adventurers Guild stuff, that would have ceased to exist. That was what January was about, and that's what we were upset about. That they were lying to us, that they tried to sneak this path without telling anybody, and that they were once again treating both the old school, like myself, and the new school, like you, Kevin, Like shit. Same thing with the VTT. You don't understand why we're upset. We wanted this to fail. No, you fucking mark. We didn't want this to fail. We're upset because Wizards of the Coast made a promise, failed to meet the promise. We're upset because Hasbro laid it out very clear what they had planned to do, but continued to fail at something as simple. No other company that is doing the exact same thing is getting as much hate, because every other company that is doing the exact same thing treats their employees and treats their customer base with even slightly more respect than Wizards of the Coast does. Wizards of the Coast does not understand who their fan base is. So while you're out there making your stupid videos about, oh, I don't understand what GM dad is upset because of you, it's like, no, dude, you don't understand. You don't understand what Wizards of the Coast is doing. You don't understand why this is a failure. You don't understand why we're upset. Professor Dungeon Master didn't want this to fail, wanted this to be successful. He doesn't want you to have to spend $30 a month to rent space on D&D Beyond, with the knowledge that any product you purchase on D&D Beyond, you're basically renting. Okay, so if you spent the $55 to get Planescape, or the $125 to get Planescape on D&D Beyond, remember, you're renting that space. You don't own it. It's digital on the subscription service, which they can change at any time they want, remove at any time they want, or alter at any time they want. And they don't have to tell you. And if you can't keep up your $30 a month or whatever it is, well, oh well, your account's closed. And after 3 months, your account's erased. Oh, I don't have $30 right now. I don't have $6 right now. Then you can't access your stuff. As opposed to like a physical thing, or every other company that's doing the exact same thing, where it's like, okay, you paid for it. It's yours. You have free access to it. Don't believe me? Don't believe me? Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. OGGM, Wizards of the Coast would never do that. I paid for it, so it's there. They're not going to go in and change my shit because I paid for it. All right, well, except, of course, for the fact that Minds and Fell Delver, the original free PDF, is gone. So anybody who had it in their D&D Beyond library should probably go to their D&D Beyond library and check it, because it's gone. And as for, oh no, OGGM, Wizards of the Coast would never go in and change stuff, I would highly recommend you go into your D&D Beyond account and go over to your copy of Bigby's Glories of the Giants and go through it, because they just said, yeah, we went in and changed shit. So you're going to pay them $5 a month for the privilege of testing this alpha test, VTT, which your name will not be in. You will not receive anything for this. You will not receive any credit. You will not receive any free shit. You will not receive a free digital set of dice. They're not going to send you a sticker and a t-shirt or whatever in the mail, like the people who spent $60 to alpha test Baldur's Gate, who got both free shit in game and free shit sent to them. Thanks for playtesting our game. Here's a shirt. Thanks for playtesting our game. Here's a sticker. All right. Wizards of the Coast says, thanks for playing alpha testing, playtesting our piece of crap VTT. Guess what? You're not getting shit. And at any point in time, you fall behind on your $5, $30 a month, whatever it is, well, then you lose all access to this. And after 3 months, it's gone anyways. Why are you upset? You wanted them to fail. No, you don't understand what January was about, and you don't understand what this is about. We're upset because Wizards of the Coast hasn't changed. Wizards of the Coast hasn't learned anything since January. Wizards of the Coast has no respect for Gary Gygax. Wizards of the Coast has no respect for the history of the hobby. Wizards of the Coast has no respect for the fact that this is the 50th anniversary. And Wizards of the Coast doesn't know who their fan base is anymore. They are constantly trying to appease these people like Mackenzie, who is never happy, or Scott, who's never happy, or Kevin, who's never happy, or Julie, who's never happy, or all these fucking Verucas. They're constantly trying to appease them, failing to understand that they're never going to be happy. No matter what you do, Wizards of the Coast, they're going to hate you. The actual 5e players, the 5 million plus 5e players, according to your own math, according to Wizards of the Coast, at any point in time, 5 million people on the face of the earth are playing D&D and at least somehow interacting with D&D Beyond directly or indirectly. That's your numbers, Wizards. Those 5 million people are the ones who came forward last week when you had the talk between Jeremy and that other guy. They were the ones who flooded the Discord with the insults. They were the ones who just flooded the Discord with their outrage at what you were doing after a year of stupid playtests. And now that the VTT has been up for a week, who's complaining the most? 5e fans. The actual 5 million 5e fans are the ones who are saying, I cannot fucking believe you did this again. And why are people like me upset? Because this is something we love. This is something that has been part of our lives for 50 years. We want the people who own D&D to either let it go to somebody who will treat it the way it's supposed to be treated, or if they're not going to let it go, then stop trying to appease this non-existent player base and make the game what it should be made. Making a D&D-centric VTT that it actually works, is actually good, should not be that hard. The technology already exists. All you have to do is cut and paste. Literally, right? VTTs are already out there. Top-down VTTs are already out there. 3D VTTs are already out there. Everything you want this VTT to do and run smoothly with D&D Beyond already exists. And there are other companies out there continuing to take the technology forward every single day. So your job, Wizards, with your multi-billion-dollar Hasbro behind you, should have been frickin' easy. And yet, you fail again. And the people who are mostly angry are 5e players. And the people who are saying, I don't understand why people are upset, you wanted this to fail, do not understand the hobby, do not understand what Wizards of the Coast is trying to do, and do not understand why January happened. Again, January wasn't about me. I can still make my product that's available for sale on the Red Room and Giant Slayer Games, no matter what. Wizards of the Coast couldn't stop me. They could have tried, but they couldn't stop me. January was about you. This is about you. This is about Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards of the Coast and the way it treats you. Okay? That's why we're upset. And if you don't understand, if you don't agree with me, if you don't believe me, that's fine. You can check out the links to the 5 other people who have gone through this. All of them far more respectable than I am, including Professor Dungeon Master. You can go and read the texts of the posts from the Discord Twitch conversation that they had when they announced the VTT and see who is saying it. You can go back to January and actually go through the multiple articles, the multiple interviews, the multiple conversations, and see what January is about. You can go back to Hasbro Pulse Con June 2020 and listen to what the Hasbro CEO clearly laid out as the plans for Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons from 2020 to June 6th, 2027. Where D&D 6X is still on the fucking calendar. So you can insult me. You can badmouth me. You can say I don't know what I'm talking about. You can say I'm an uneducated, inexperienced, idiot, white belt scrub, old, grumpy, West Coast grognard, grumpy grump, or whatever else it is you fucking Verucas say about me. That's fine, because the links are down below. Don't listen to me. Use your own 2 fingers to type in the URL, and you can see the information is there. You can see clearly how Wizards is treating you. Don't give Wizards of the Coast your money until they change. Instead, give me your fucking money. You knew it was coming, right? Check out my links down below. I got a ton of new merch on the Red Room. I got new product coming out in October. I got the Halloween adventure on Giant Slayer and Red Room. I got the Wretched Goblins up on Red Room. And of course, Wretched Vigilantes and Bad Guys Never Win are available marked down on the Red Room. We've got the Halloween stuff coming up. So if you haven't had a chance to check out all the amazing OGGM product that is out there, There are links down below. Until next time, stay safe, fly low, and avoid the radars. And get off my land, you fucking marks.